She arrived at boot camp early in the morning, long before most of the other recruits had even opened their eyes. The air was crisp and sharp, carrying the smell of wet grass and the faint trace of metal from the training grounds. She took a deep breath, feeling her heart pound in her chest. This was it, the place that would test every ounce of her strength, courage, and determination. She had dreamed of joining for years, imagining the challenge, the discipline, and the chance to prove herself, but nothing could have prepared her for what awaited. As she stepped onto the grounds, she immediately felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her. The other recruits, rough and confident, sized her up with curiosity and, in some cases, thinly veiled amusement. They whispered among themselves, casting glances at her small frame, her quiet demeanor, and, most notably, the large tattoo covering the middle of her back. It wasn't hidden by her uniform. It peeked out from under the straps of her gear, a bold design that drew attention even from a distance. "Who does she think she is?" one of the recruits muttered under his breath, barely loud enough for anyone but his group to hear. Another laughed and shook his head. "She'll never last a day here," he added with a smirk. Their words stung, but she ignored them. She had learned long ago that the opinions of strangers didn't define her. She had a purpose, and that purpose was stronger than their mockery. The first few hours were brutal. The instructors wasted no time in pushing everyone to their limits. They shouted commands, demonstrated exercises with fierce precision, and made it clear that only the strongest, physically and mentally, would survive. The recruits ran laps, performed push-ups and sit-ups until their muscles burned, and struggled through obstacle courses that tested both strength and coordination. She felt her legs shake, her lungs burn, and her arms tremble, but she refused to let it show. Every time she moved, the other recruits watched, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others smirking or whispering behind their hands. They mocked her small stature, assuming she couldn't possibly keep up with the larger, more experienced recruits. They didn't know that behind her quiet exterior was a mind honed by focus and determination. She had trained herself not only physically but mentally, learning how to stay calm under pressure and think quickly in moments of chaos. Even when the exercises were designed to humiliate and break spirits, she held her head high. She fell, struggled, and sometimes lagged behind, but she never quit. She treated every challenge as a lesson, observing how her classmates moved, how they reacted to the instructor's commands, and how they handled failure. She noticed patterns, strengths, and weaknesses, all while keeping her own struggles private. Her tattoo, the source of so much teasing, became a shield of sorts. The recruits didn't understand it, and that made them uneasy. It was intricate and unique, a mix of symbols that seemed meaningless at first glance, but carried a story that only she knew. Whenever someone tried to joke about it or make fun of her, she simply smiled faintly and moved on. The mystery of it seemed to make some of them more curious, though most were too focused on mocking her to ask. By midday, she had begun to notice small shifts. A few recruits, the ones who had been quietly observing her, started to respect the way she carried herself. She didn't fight back verbally, didn't try to prove herself with words. Instead, she let her actions speak. Every time she completed an obstacle, every time she pushed through exhaustion, she gained just a little more recognition. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it was there. The instructors, seasoned and sharp-eyed, also began to notice her. They watched as she approached every task with precision and determination, never panicking, never complaining. While the others often struggled under the pressure, she stayed calm, calculated, and steady. They didn't yet know her full potential, but even in these early hours, it was clear she was different from most recruits. She wasn't just physically capable. She had a focus and resilience that could not be easily broken. By the time the sun began to dip in the sky, the first day was coming to a close. She stood at the edge of the training ground, sweaty and exhausted, but with a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had survived the day that had defeated so many others, and she had done it on her own terms. The whispers and laughs of the recruits still floated around her, but they no longer mattered. She had entered boot camp as a target for ridicule, but she would not leave as anyone's joke. Instead, She carried with her a growing confidence and the knowledge that the first battle had been won, not against the exercises or the instructors, but against doubt and underestimation. Her journey had only just begun, and though the road ahead would be filled with challenges, she was ready. The laughter of her peers would not define her. She had a plan, a purpose, and a determination that no one could shake. And little did they know, the tattoo they mocked would one day reveal a truth that would leave everyone speechless, starting with the commander himself. The morning of the second day in boot camp arrived, and the air felt heavier than the day before. The recruits were already buzzing with exhaustion, sore muscles, and the lingering frustration from yesterday's challenges. She, however, woke up with a quiet determination, as if the soreness in her legs and the burn in her arms were proof that she was already making progress. She knew that boot camp would test more than just physical strength. It would test patience, mental toughness, and the ability to push forward when everyone else was ready to give up. The instructors wasted no time in upping the intensity. Today's challenges were even more demanding. Recruits were sent through a series of grueling obstacle courses designed to push them past what they thought was possible. There were walls to climb, muddy ditches to cross, ropes to swing on, and narrow beams that demanded perfect balance. Many recruits faltered immediately, slipping in the mud, tumbling from the beams, or simply freezing in fear at the height of the walls. Laughter and groans echoed across the training ground as some struggled and others jeered. She, however, approached every obstacle carefully. She didn't rush, and she didn't let the laughter of her peers distract her. With each wall she climbed, each ditch she crossed, and every rope she swung across, she focused on her own rhythm and her own strategy. It was not the fastest, but it was the most precise. She paid attention to her footing, her grip, and her balance. While the others relied solely on brute force, she combined strength with careful thought. Even when a group of recruits began mocking her, calling her clumsy and slow, she didn't retaliate. They were loud, brash, and confident, but their words held no power over her. She had learned long ago that confidence came from within, and no amount of teasing could shake her focus. In fact, she quietly observed the very people who mocked her, studying their weaknesses. She noticed how some relied too much on speed and ignored precision, how others became impatient and lost focus. She started thinking strategically, realizing that this observation might give her an advantage later. At one point, the instructors set up a timed obstacle challenge, pitting recruits against the clock as well as each other. Many of the stronger-looking recruits tried to power through, pushing their bodies to the limit but making mistakes along the way. They slipped, fumbled, or panicked when something went wrong. She, in contrast, kept her calm. Her movements were deliberate, almost methodical. She didn't care about impressing anyone or proving herself to the noisy crowd. Her goal was simple: complete each task efficiently and without error. By the end of the challenge, the results surprised everyone. The recruits who had mocked her were left breathless, exhausted, and often frustrated at their own failures. And while she didn't come in first in terms of raw speed, her overall performance was nearly flawless. She had completed each obstacle cleanly, without mistakes, and with a level of control that others lacked. A few of the instructors nodded in quiet approval, recognizing a rare mix of intelligence and skill in her approach. Despite her growing confidence, she was not yet fully comfortable with the attention she was attracting. Some recruits began whispering about her abilities, their previous mockery turning into cautious curiosity. "How does she move like that?" one muttered, shaking his head. "She's not even the biggest or strongest, but she's different." She smiled faintly to herself. Let them think whatever they wanted. She wasn't here for their approval. She was here to prove something to herself. The afternoon brought a different kind of challenge: teamwork exercises. Recruits were paired up and placed in simulated combat scenarios, required to complete tasks that demanded cooperation, communication, and trust. Many recruits struggled here as well, clashing with their partners or arguing over strategy. She, however, instinctively stepped into a leadership role, not by demanding authority but by calmly suggesting plans and supporting her partner. Her quiet confidence made her partner feel secure, and together they executed the exercise with precision. By the end of the day, it became clear that she was no ordinary recruit. The instructors started taking mental notes, recognizing her potential not just as a capable soldier, but as someone who could handle pressure, think strategically, and lead others if needed. Even some of the recruits who had mocked her began to respect her in their own way, though none admitted it aloud. They watched her from a distance, noticing the steady way she moved, the quiet confidence that refused to be shaken, and the growing sense that she might be capable of far more than anyone had initially imagined. As the sun set and the recruits returned to their bunks, exhausted and sore, she allowed herself a brief moment to reflect. Boot camp was still only beginning, and the challenges ahead promised to be even tougher. But she knew one thing clearly: she would not be defined by the laughter or doubt of others. She had discovered something important about herself. Her strength was not just in her muscles, but in her mind, her focus, and her ability to stay calm when everyone else was panicking. And while the tattoo on her back had been a source of teasing and curiosity, it now felt like a silent reminder of who she really was. It was a symbol of resilience, determination, and hidden strength, qualities that would continue to surprise everyone around her in the days to come. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more tests, and more opportunities to prove herself. But after today, she knew she was ready. She had survived the second day of boot camp with her confidence intact, and her determination burned brighter than ever. By the third day at boot camp, she had begun to settle into a rhythm, though the challenges only seemed to grow harder. The instructors were relentless, introducing new exercises that tested stamina, coordination, and mental sharpness. Recruits were pushed further than before, often beyond what they thought their bodies could handle. For many, exhaustion was taking its toll. Arms shook during obstacle courses, legs burned on endless runs, and tempers flared at the smallest mistakes. But she moved with a steady calm, unaffected by the chaos around her. Her tattoo, which had been a source of curiosity and mockery since her first day, now seemed to draw more attention than ever. It was a bold design covering much of her upper back, a mixture of intricate symbols, sharp lines, and patterns that seemed almost alive. Some recruits whispered about it, trying to guess what it meant. "It's probably just some silly decoration," one said. "Maybe she thinks it makes her tough," another laughed. She ignored them, knowing the tattoo held a deeper significance that no one could understand. It was her own quiet strength, a reminder of where she had come from and what she was capable of. Today, the instructors introduced a new type of challenge, one that was not just physical but mental. Recruits were required to memorize sequences, solve complex problems under time pressure, and make split-second decisions while navigating difficult terrain. Many recruits faltered immediately, frustrated by the combination of speed and accuracy demanded of them. They rushed, panicked, or froze under the pressure, often failing tasks they would normally find easy. She, on the other hand, approached each task like a puzzle. She observed carefully, memorized the sequences, and calculated her moves before acting. Her precision stood in stark contrast to the chaos surrounding her. Despite her growing competence, the teasing didn't stop. Some of the louder recruits continued to mock her, calling her slow or pretending to be perfect, but their words began to lose their sting. The more she succeeded, the more their voices became background noise. She realized that what mattered was not what they thought, but what she knew she could do. Slowly, some of the recruits who had been quietly observing started to take notice. They saw that her calm and calculated movements often led to success where others failed. Curiosity began to replace ridicule in a few of their minds. During lunch break, she sat apart from the group, quietly eating and reviewing her own performance in her mind. She thought about the mistakes she had made, the areas she could improve, and how she could anticipate the challenges ahead. It wasn't arrogance that drove her, it was preparation. She understood that boot camp wasn't just about strength or speed. It was about intelligence, strategy, and endurance under pressure. And while her peers often relied solely on their physical abilities, she had learned to rely on both mind and body. The afternoon brought another test that would push everyone's limits. The recruits were paired into teams for a tactical exercise. The task seemed simple: navigate a simulated combat zone, complete objectives, and return safely. But the reality was far more complex. Every team struggled with miscommunication, mistakes, and poor judgment under stress. Recruits shouted at each other, argued over directions, and blamed teammates for every failure. She, as usual, stayed calm. She quickly assessed her team's strengths and weaknesses, assigned roles that suited each person, and kept the group focused on the mission. By the end of the exercise, her team had completed the task faster and more efficiently than most others. A few instructors exchanged glances, clearly impressed. The recruits who had mocked her looked on, stunned that she had outperformed many of the bigger, stronger, and more confident members. Some of them began to realize that there was more to her than met the eye. She wasn't just surviving boot camp. She was quietly excelling. Her tattoo, though still a mystery to everyone, seemed to carry an aura of intrigue. The more the recruits tried to understand her, the more they realized that she was full of hidden strengths. It wasn't just her skill or intelligence. It was the confidence, calmness, and unwavering focus that set her apart. Even those who had been openly mocking her now began to look at her differently. They weren't sure what to make of her, but they couldn't deny that she was someone extraordinary. As the day drew to a close, she reflected quietly on the progress she had made. Boot camp was still harsh, and there were many more days of challenge ahead, but she felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had survived the most demanding exercises so far, outperformed many of her peers, and maintained her composure under pressure. The laughter and mocking of her tattoo had shifted from derision to curiosity, and even a few glances of respect. In that moment, she understood something important. The tattoo wasn't just a design on her back. It was a symbol of her resilience, her hidden capabilities, and the promise that she would continue to surprise everyone around her. The instructors noticed her abilities, the recruits began to rethink their assumptions, and even the boot camp itself seemed to take note of her presence. She had become a figure of quiet intrigue, someone whose potential could no longer be ignored. And as she lay down that night, sore but determined, she realized that the real test was just beginning. The tattoo, the skills, the focus, they were all part of a story that was slowly unfolding. A story that would one day leave everyone, especially the commander, completely stunned. Until then, she would continue to observe, learn, and prepare, knowing that every challenge she overcame brought her one step closer to proving the truth. She was not to be underestimated. By the fourth day of boot camp, the intensity had grown to a level that tested every recruit physically, mentally, and emotionally. The instructors were no longer holding back. Each drill was designed to break down weaknesses and reveal strengths, often in front of the entire group. Fatigue was everywhere. Arms ached, legs burned, and faces showed exhaustion. The air was thick with tension, and many recruits were already on the verge of giving up. She, however, had learned to embrace the challenge. Each difficulty was not a punishment but an opportunity to prove herself. Today's exercises were more complex than anything they had faced before. The instructors introduced a high-stakes obstacle course that combined running, climbing, balancing, and problem-solving under extreme time pressure. Most recruits rushed, pushing their bodies to the edge, but their haste led to mistakes. Slips, falls, and failed attempts were common, and the louder recruits often mocked each other when mistakes were made. She, as usual, approached the course with her trademark calmness. She didn't care about speed alone. Instead, she focused on precision, ensuring that every movement was calculated and controlled. Her tattoo, which had drawn laughter and whispers on previous days, now seemed to act like a silent symbol of her determination. Some recruits would glance at it mid-exercise, wondering if there was some hidden meaning, or if it somehow gave her an edge. She didn't respond to the attention. She simply moved, steady and unshakable, ignoring the chatter around her. The whispers slowly shifted from ridicule to confusion. "How does she do that?" one recruit muttered under his breath. "She moves like she knows something we don't." As she navigated the obstacles, her mind worked faster than her body. She noticed patterns in the course that others overlooked. She found shortcuts without cutting corners, adjusted her footing to maintain balance, and even helped herself conserve energy during the toughest parts. Every time she completed a section flawlessly, the confidence inside her grew, while the mocking and underestimation from her peers began to fade. She could feel the respect growing, though few would admit it openly. The instructors noticed her too. One of them, a stern veteran who rarely showed approval, paused briefly to observe her. There was something about the way she moved, calm, focused, almost effortless, that set her apart from the others. Her performance wasn't flashy or aggressive, but it was precise and reliable. The veteran made a mental note. This recruit had skills and discipline that could be very valuable in high-pressure situations. Midway through the day, a test designed to evaluate teamwork was introduced. Recruits were paired with different partners and required to complete a series of complex tasks together. Many teams struggled. Some argued constantly, while others hesitated, unsure how to proceed under the instructor's watchful eyes. She immediately recognized the strengths and weaknesses of her partner and adapted. Instead of commanding or criticizing, she quietly guided, offering suggestions and encouragement. Her partner followed without hesitation, and together they completed the tasks with efficiency and calm precision. By the end of the exercise, it was clear that her quiet leadership was making a difference. While the other teams had stumbled and argued, hers had moved smoothly, completing objectives that others failed to accomplish. The instructors exchanged glances, impressed by how she naturally combined skill, strategy, and calm authority. Some of the recruits who had mocked her earlier were now watching from the sidelines, a mix of confusion and begrudging respect in their eyes. They had started the day believing she would be an easy target, but she was proving them completely wrong. The tattoo on her back remained a mystery, but in a strange way, it had become part of the story everyone was now watching unfold. The combination of skill, strategy, and quiet confidence made her almost untouchable in the eyes of her peers. They couldn't figure her out, and that confusion only added to her aura of capability. Every precise movement and every clever decision seemed to reinforce the silent message that she was not to be underestimated. As the day drew to a close, she reflected on what she had accomplished. She had navigated the most difficult exercises yet, outperformed most of her peers, and quietly earned respect from both her instructors and the recruits around her. She felt exhausted, yes, but also a sense of quiet triumph. She had faced ridicule, mockery, and doubt, and had overcome them all without losing focus. That night, as she lay in her bunk, she thought about the days ahead. She knew the challenges would continue to escalate, each one designed to push her limits further. But she also knew something crucial. She had discovered her own rhythm, her own strengths, and her own way of thriving under pressure. The tattoo, once a point of ridicule, now felt like a badge of quiet power. It was a reminder that she had something inside her that no one could take away. Resilience, intelligence, and the ability to remain calm when others panicked. She didn't need approval from anyone. The whispers and glances of her peers were just background noise. What mattered was that she had proven to herself that she could endure, adapt, and excel. The instructors had noticed, the recruits had begun to respect her, and deep down, she knew that the real surprises were yet to come. That tattoo, and the hidden story behind it, would soon reveal a truth that no one at Bootcamp could ignore. And so, with the ache in her muscles and the determination in her heart, she prepared herself for another day. Another day to prove that strength was not only measured by speed or brute force, but by calm focus, strategy, and the courage to rise above mockery. She had begun as the target of laughter, but she was quietly transforming into someone no one would dare underestimate. The 5th day of boot camp arrived with a tension that was almost palpable. Everyone could feel it. The instructors had announced a high-profile training exercise that would be overseen by the commander himself. Rumors had been circulating for days about the importance of this exercise. It was designed to push recruits to their absolute limits, testing not only their strength and endurance but also their strategy, leadership, and ability to perform under extreme pressure. The stakes were higher than ever, and the air was thick with nervous energy. The recruits gathered information, eyes scanning the faces of their peers, measuring who looked ready and who might crumble. She stood quietly among them, calm and focused, seemingly unaffected by the whispers, nervous glances, or the laughter of those who doubted her. Inside, however, she felt a spark of anticipation. This was the kind of challenge she had been waiting for. She thrived in situations that forced her to think, plan, and act decisively under pressure. She knew that this exercise could be the moment to show what she was truly capable of. The instructors outlined the exercise. It was complex, a simulated mission requiring careful coordination and precision. Recruits had to navigate difficult terrain, complete multiple objectives, and work seamlessly as a team, all while under time constraints and close observation. Many recruits immediately looked overwhelmed. They whispered to each other, panicked, or made excuses. Some of the louder, more confident recruits even smirked at her, assuming she would struggle as she had in some previous exercises. But she didn't let their assumptions bother her. She had learned long ago that mockery and doubt were distractions that could be turned into motivation. As the exercise began, chaos erupted. Recruits rushed headlong into the course, some tripping, others arguing with their partners. It was clear that most were relying on brute strength and speed rather than careful planning. She, however, moved with calm precision. She observed the situation around her, quickly identifying the weaknesses and strengths of her team members. Instead of charging recklessly, she organized her actions, adjusted her movements based on the terrain, and made small but crucial corrections that ensured progress while others faltered. At one point, her team faced a particularly tricky section of the course. A narrow bridge suspended over a simulated drop, with limited visibility and unstable footing. Many recruits hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. Panic began to spread among them. She stepped forward, calmly assessing the bridge and guiding her team. Her clear instructions, combined with her own steady movements, allowed everyone to cross safely. The other recruits who had mocked her earlier were now staring in disbelief. She had turned a situation that could have been disastrous into a success, and she had done it quietly without fanfare. Throughout the exercise, she continued to demonstrate her skills. She anticipated obstacles before they appeared, adjusted strategies on the fly, and made decisions that ensured her team stayed on track. Her calm under pressure became almost magnetic, influencing the others to focus rather than panic. The instructors, observing from a distance, exchanged looks of approval. One of them muttered, "She's different. Watch her closely." Even the commander, standing nearby to oversee the entire operation, noticed her. Something about the way she moved, the precision of her decisions, and the quiet authority she projected caught his attention immediately. By the time the exercise was completed, it was clear that she had been the key factor in her team's success. They had completed the objectives faster, cleaner, and more efficiently than most other teams. The other recruits, some of whom had laughed and doubted her from the beginning, now watched silently, their surprise obvious. No one had expected her to handle the mission with such poise and effectiveness. Even the loudest skeptics were forced to reconsider everything they had assumed about her. The commander, who had remained stoic throughout the exercise, finally took a step closer. His gaze lingered on her, and for the first time, the laughter and mockery of the past seemed irrelevant. Here was someone who had performed flawlessly under pressure, someone whose calm, strategic mind had guided her team to success. He didn't say anything immediately, but the recognition in his eyes was unmistakable. She had done more than survive the exercise. She had excelled in a way that no one, not even the instructors, could ignore. As the recruits returned to their bunks, exhausted and sweaty, she reflected quietly on the day. She had faced one of the toughest exercises of Bootcamp and had not only survived but excelled. The teasing, the doubts, and the mockery from earlier days no longer mattered. Her focus, her calm, and her ability to think and act under pressure had proven her worth. She had shown, without saying a word, that she was capable of far more than anyone had assumed. The tattoo on her back, which had sparked curiosity and ridicule from the start, now seemed almost symbolic. It was a reminder of her hidden strength, her determination, and the quiet confidence that had carried her through every challenge. The commander's attention, the instructor's approval, and even the reluctant respect from her peers all signaled that something had changed. She had moved from being underestimated to being recognized as a force to be reckoned with, and this exercise was just the beginning. That night, as she rested her sore muscles and reflected on the day, she knew that the real test of her abilities was still ahead. The high-profile exercise had revealed her skills, but it had also shown her the level of excellence that would now be expected. She was ready, though. Every challenge she had faced so far had prepared her for this moment. And she knew, deep down, that the tattoo she carried on her back, once a source of mockery, would one day reveal a secret that would leave everyone, including the commander, completely stunned. The morning after the high-profile exercise began quietly, with the recruits still feeling the exhaustion from the day before. Muscles ached, and faces showed fatigue, but the tension in the air was different now. Everyone knew that the commander and instructors were watching more closely. The whispers and doubts from previous days had begun to fade, replaced by curiosity and cautious attention. Some recruits were already reassessing their assumptions, unsure how someone they had once mocked could perform with such precision and calm. She walked onto the training field with the same quiet determination that had carried her this far. She didn't speak much, didn't boast, and didn't react to the lingering glances from her peers. She had learned that actions spoke louder than words. Today was another opportunity to prove herself, but more importantly, it was a chance to demonstrate that she was not just skilled but dependable under pressure. She had the experience now. Every challenge she had faced in the past days had sharpened her focus and taught her to anticipate what others might miss. The instructors had designed a particularly difficult exercise for the morning, a simulation requiring extreme precision, coordination, and adaptability. It involved multiple moving parts, navigating through a challenging obstacle course, solving tactical puzzles, and coordinating with team members to complete specific objectives under strict time constraints. Most recruits approached it with a sense of panic, trying to rush through the tasks without thinking. Mistakes happened quickly. Missteps on beams, fumbled ropes, and arguments breaking out between partners. She, as always, stayed calm. Every movement she made was calculated. Every decision was deliberate. At one point, her team faced a seemingly impossible obstacle. A narrow balance beam stretched across a simulated danger zone, and recruits had to carry equipment while maintaining their balance. Many froze, unsure how to proceed, while others rushed and stumbled. She assessed the situation quickly, noting the angles, the spacing, and the weight of the equipment. Then she led by example, stepping carefully onto the beam, moving with a rhythm that encouraged her teammates to follow. Her calm presence was infectious. What had seemed impossible moments ago became manageable as her teammates gained confidence under her guidance. It wasn't just her physical skills that set her apart. Her strategic thinking became evident as she noticed opportunities that others overlooked. While some recruits focused solely on speed, she paid attention to patterns and timing, making small adjustments that saved her team precious seconds. When an unexpected obstacle arose, a malfunction in the course setup, she adapted instantly, directing her team around it efficiently. Her ability to remain composed and make quick decisions under pressure impressed the instructors. Even the commander, observing from a distance, couldn't help but notice how she maneuvered the situation flawlessly. By the afternoon, it was clear that her performance had elevated her team above the rest. Where other teams struggled with coordination and mistakes, her group moved smoothly and efficiently. Her teammates began to look to her for guidance, following her silently and trusting her decisions. The louder recruits who had mocked her now watched in disbelief, unable to reconcile their previous assumptions with the reality in front of them. She had transformed from the quiet, underestimated recruit into the team's anchor, someone everyone relied on, whether they admitted it or not. Her tattoo, still a point of curiosity among the recruits, seemed to add to the mystique. No one knew its meaning, but combined with her skills and composure, it created an impression that she was not ordinary. The instructors exchanged glances, impressed not only by her physical ability, but by her calm intelligence, leadership, and ability to adapt to any situation. One instructor murmured, "She's a natural. Watch how she handles the next challenge." Even the commander, usually unreadable, observed her more closely now, his expression one of quiet intrigue. By the end of the day, her performance had become impossible to ignore. She had successfully guided her team through one of the toughest exercises of Bootcamp, demonstrating leadership, strategy, and skill. The other recruits, some of whom had mocked her for days, were now silent, watching her with a mix of surprise and respect. The ridicule and underestimation that had followed her since day one had evaporated, replaced by acknowledgement of her abilities. As the recruits returned to their bunks, exhausted but accomplished, she reflected on what had just happened. She realized that her calm focus, strategic mind, and unshakable determination were her greatest assets. While others had relied on brute strength or loud confidence, she had relied on intelligence, observation, and patience. Her tattoo, a symbol of her hidden strength, had become a subtle emblem of the power she carried within herself, a power that no one had truly recognized until now. That evening, as she lay on her bunk, sore but proud, she understood something vital. She had proven herself under pressure, and she had done so quietly, without seeking recognition or approval. The respect she had earned from instructors and peers was real, and yet the greatest validation came from within. She knew that the challenges ahead would grow even more demanding, but she also knew that she had the skills, the focus, and the mindset to face them. Deep down, she sensed that her tattoo, the object of curiosity and mockery, would one day reveal its true meaning, shocking everyone who had doubted her. For now, it remained a quiet reminder of her resilience and her untapped potential. The commander had taken notice, the instructors had taken note, and the recruits could no longer underestimate her. She was no longer just a recruit. She was someone who had begun to command attention, not with words, but with her actions. And as she drifted off to sleep, she felt ready. Ready for the challenges ahead, ready to continue proving herself, and ready for the moment when the truth behind her tattoo, and the skills it represented, would leave everyone completely stunned. The 7th day of boot camp was different from all the others. Up until now, the focus had been on testing the recruits' physical strength, endurance, and mental focus. But today, everything seemed to change. The instructors announced a special exercise, one that was more than just another drill. It was a scenario designed to reveal leadership, hidden talents, and the ability to handle situations that were unpredictable and high pressure. The commander himself would observe closely, and the recruits sensed immediately that the stakes were higher than ever before. She stepped onto the field, calm as always, while around her, the other recruits buzzed with nervous energy. Some whispered nervously, glancing at the commander, others cast quick, doubtful looks at her, the one who had surprised them again and again. Over the past days, she had earned a reputation. Quiet, precise, and unusually skilled, she had become impossible to ignore. Many of the recruits who had mocked her in the past were now silent, unsure how to react to her growing abilities. The exercise began and chaos erupted. The task was complex. A simulated tactical mission requiring precision, speed, and flawless teamwork. Recruits had to complete multiple objectives, each with potential obstacles and unexpected challenges. Many panicked almost immediately, struggling to adapt. Teams argued, stumbled, and faltered, but she moved with her usual calm, assessing the situation carefully and taking control without appearing commanding. Her strategic thinking became the key to her team's success. Where others rushed recklessly, she planned every step. When a problem arose, equipment failure, miscommunication, or an unexpected barrier, she adapted instantly, finding solutions that kept her team moving forward. Her calmness and clarity under pressure inspired confidence in her teammates. Even those who had doubted her earlier instinctively followed her guidance. She had become not just a capable recruit but a leader in action, someone whose presence brought stability to chaos. Then came the moment that would change everything. During the final part of the exercise, the commander approached, observing from close range. He had been watching quietly, as he always did, analyzing every move, every decision. And then his eyes landed on her tattoo. The large, intricate design on her back that had sparked whispers and mockery since day one. Something about it caused him to pause. The pattern, the symbols, the design, it was unmistakable. It matched the insignia of a top-secret military program, one known only to a select few in the highest ranks. A sudden hush fell over the recruits. Some looked at her in confusion, others in shock. The commander, who had been silent and stoic throughout the exercises, froze for a moment, clearly stunned. The tattoo she had carried quietly on her back, which many had dismissed as just a decorative mark, revealed a truth that no one had suspected. She wasn't just a recruit. She was someone who had undergone training far beyond what anyone in boot camp could imagine. The skills she had demonstrated, the calmness under pressure, the precision, the leadership now made perfect sense. They were the product of elite, highly specialized training. The recruits who had mocked her earlier could hardly believe what they were seeing. The girl they had underestimated, laughed at, and teased was far more than she appeared. Every precise movement, every thoughtful decision, every calm moment under stress was no accident. Her past experiences and specialized training had prepared her for this moment. And now, standing in full view of the commander and her peers, the secret was revealed without a word from her. The commander finally spoke, his tone measured but filled with recognition. He acknowledged her skill, her composure, and her exceptional performance. The entire group could feel the shift in atmosphere. Respect, admiration, and even awe replaced the whispers of mockery. It was clear that she had earned a place not just among the recruits but in the eyes of the most senior observers. Her reputation had transformed overnight. From the quiet girl everyone doubted to the recruit whose abilities could not be questioned. As the day continued, she moved through the remaining tasks with the same focus and calm as always. But now something had changed. The eyes of everyone around her, peers, instructors, and the commander were on her, but they were no longer skeptical. There was acknowledgement, a quiet but unmistakable recognition of her talents. Even the recruits who had mocked her could not hide their surprise. They had learned a valuable lesson. Appearances could be deceiving, and true skill and strength often came from unexpected places. By the end of the day, the significance of her tattoo, and the skills it represented, became clear to everyone. She had carried a secret that was both a part of her identity and a symbol of her hidden strength. The commander's stunned reaction, the acknowledgement from the instructors, and the newfound respect from her peers marked a turning point. She was no longer the recruit to be underestimated. She had become someone who commanded attention without needing to speak, someone whose presence and abilities spoke louder than any words could. That night, as she reflected on the day, she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. The secret she had carried, the training and experiences behind her tattoo, had finally been recognized. She had proven herself under the most challenging circumstances and had done so with grace and precision. And while the journey was far from over, she knew that this revelation had changed everything. The laughter and doubt of her peers were gone, replaced by respect and admiration. She had transformed from the quiet recruit no one believed in into someone whose skills, calmness, and hidden strength were undeniable. The tattoo, once a source of mockery and curiosity, had become a symbol of her identity and her abilities. It had revealed the truth that words could not convey. She was exceptional, prepared, and unstoppable. And everyone, from the commander to her peers, would remember this moment. The day when the hidden truth behind her back tattoo stunned them all. The final day of boot camp had arrived, and it carried a different energy from all the previous days. The recruits were no longer the same group that had arrived timid, unsure, and eager to test themselves. Weeks of grueling exercises, mental challenges, and harsh training had transformed everyone, but none more so than her. She had faced ridicule, doubt, and relentless challenges, yet she had emerged stronger, sharper, and more confident than anyone could have imagined. Today was the culmination of all those days, the final test, and the moment when her journey from underestimated recruit to respected force would be complete. From the moment the recruits lined up, it was clear that the atmosphere had shifted. No one laughed at her tattoo anymore. Instead, curious glances lingered as people tried to understand the aura of calm confidence she carried. The instructors and even the commander watched closely, and everyone knew that this day would define more than just physical ability. It would reveal leadership, skill, and courage under extreme pressure. She felt a quiet sense of readiness. This was her moment to prove, once and for all, that she was no ordinary recruit. The morning exercises began with an intense obstacle course designed to test stamina, strategy, and mental focus. Many recruits rushed through, relying on raw strength alone, and faltered when unexpected challenges arose. She, however, approached every obstacle with her usual precision and thoughtfulness. Her movements were deliberate, her strategy calculated. She anticipated the pitfalls others ignored and adapted in real time. Her teammates instinctively followed her guidance, trusting her decisions without hesitation. As the exercises progressed, she found herself in situations that would have challenged even the most experienced recruits. A simulated emergency required rapid problem-solving while navigating a complex terrain filled with obstacles. Panic spread among several members of her group, but she remained steady, calmly directing and assisting them. Her clear-headed leadership transformed a potentially disastrous scenario into a successful completion. The instructors, always attentive, exchanged approving looks. The commander's gaze lingered on her, a mixture of respect and surprise evident in his expression. Midway through the day, a communication-based exercise tested the recruit's ability to coordinate under pressure. Teams had to relay critical information accurately while moving through a maze-like terrain, and mistakes could cost them time and points. Many recruits struggled, miscommunicating or rushing ahead without clarity. She approached the task with a level of calm precision that seemed almost effortless. Every instruction she gave was clear, every decision carefully measured. Her teammates executed her plans flawlessly, and the team moved with efficiency and coherence that no other group could match. It was during this exercise that the significance of her tattoo became more than just a symbol. The commander, observing from a distance, leaned in for a closer look. The intricate design she bore was instantly recognizable to him. It matched a rare insignia associated with an elite training program. This revelation explained the precision, the calm, and the leadership she had displayed throughout bootcamp. Her abilities were not accidental. They were trained, disciplined, and exceptional. The commander's eyes widened in realization, and even the instructors exchanged knowing nods. The final challenge of the day combined all aspects of the training: endurance, mental acuity, teamwork, and leadership. It was a simulation meant to mirror real-world high-pressure operations. Teams had to navigate unpredictable obstacles, complete tasks under strict time constraints, and adapt instantly to new challenges. Many recruits struggled, but she moved as she always had, methodically, confidently, and effectively. Her teammates depended on her guidance, and she delivered with unwavering precision. Every decision she made, every instruction she gave, and every movement she executed contributed to the team's success. By the end of the exercise, it was undeniable. She had led her team to outperform every other group. The silence from the recruits who had once mocked her was deafening. Even the most skeptical peers now looked at her with awe. The commander stepped forward, finally speaking, his voice calm but filled with acknowledgement. He praised her for her exceptional performance, her leadership, and her ability to remain composed under pressure. The respect she had earned was no longer quiet or private. It was recognized by everyone present. As the day concluded, she stood tall among her peers, exhausted but triumphant. The laughter and mockery from the first days were distant memories. The tattoo that had been a source of teasing now symbolized her strength, her skill, and her hidden potential finally revealed. She had transformed completely, from the quiet, underestimated recruit to a figure of undeniable respect, someone whose abilities and composure had impressed both peers and superiors alike. That evening, as the recruits gathered to reflect on their journey, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Bootcamp had tested every part of her, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and she had not only survived but thrived. Her perseverance, intelligence, and calm determination had been validated in the most public way possible. She had earned respect not through words, but through action, proving that true strength lies in resilience, skill, and the courage to keep moving forward even when others doubt you. She understood now that her tattoo was more than just a design. It was a symbol of her journey, her hidden potential, and the proof that appearances could be deceiving. The commander, the instructors, and even her fellow recruits had witnessed her transformation. They had seen firsthand how determination, strategy, and inner strength could overcome ridicule, doubt, and the harshest challenges. As she looked around at the faces of those who had once laughed at her, she felt no bitterness, only a quiet satisfaction. The journey had not just been about proving them wrong. It had been about proving herself right. She had discovered her own strength, her own focus, and her own ability to inspire others through action. And as she left the training grounds that night, the realization settled within her. She had earned something far greater than respect. She had earned confidence in herself, a recognition of her abilities, and the knowledge that she was capable of achieving more than anyone had ever imagined. The story of her journey, the laughter, the doubt, the challenges, and the ultimate revelation of her tattoo, would remain in the minds of everyone at Bootcamp. She had started as the quiet recruit no one believed in, and she had ended as someone extraordinary, whose talent and courage could never again be underestimated.